Yo, what's going on, everybody? It is Chad here with BetHub.com. Today, I just have to have a bit of a rant and rave session in regards to recapping what took place this weekend in the NFL. Some phenomenal football in the division round compared to what we had saw in the previous week with the wild card games. They were boring, they were blowouts, lower scoring. As a matter of fact, all four games in the wild card round went under the number from a totals perspective. And this week, they all went over the total in the division round. And as a matter of fact, those four games that were played were the highest collective four games played in the division round in NFL history. So I'm sure you guys were at the edge of your seats with touchdowns being scored left, right, and center. So before we get to the conference championship picks and wagers and all that good stuff for this week, we need to take a look back at what happened here and really break down what took place on the football field. Let's start with the game that had the biggest controversy. Of course, the Denver Broncos having blown the lead there, in which many online sports books, when they had that touchdown lead and had the football and were trying to run out the clock, had them pegged as minus 5,000 in-game wagering. That equates to a 99% probability of winning that game. Well, what do you know? The 1% time occurred for the Baltimore Ravens, and I will get to congratulating them and tipping my hat for the amount of heart and courage this team showed. But you know what? The bottom line here from a storyline perspective is it's definitely on Denver for screwing up here. You have arguably the best quarterback of all time. You go out there, John Elway, and you do everything you can to bring in Peyton Manning to win a Super Bowl with the defense that was ready to support him, and you're not going to allow him to throw for 7 yards to win the football game, John Fox? That is absolutely disgusting. And I don't care if Peyton Manning decided to call an audible at the line of scrimmage because he thought a better play was to run the football. John Fox, as the coach of this team, needs to ensure that heading into that situation that there's no possibility, if there's a chance to end the game with a throw, that wasn't going to happen. And if they weren't sure, you guys call a timeout and draw it up. Because at the end of the day, even if for some reason, they don't end up getting the first down from the throw and it stops the clock, they're still going to have to punt the ball away no matter what. So you're still giving Baltimore that chance, conceding the fact that you would like to rely on your defense, which had been putrid all day long, was getting carved up with the deep ball. Champ Bailey was having the worst day of his life. Torrey Smith was eating him for breakfast. Anquan Bolden over the middle all day long. Jacoby Jones with speed. And you could see that their safeties were having issue. We now know what happened with Moore and Mike Adams. It was just a brutal day. So I don't care what the regular season stats had said with Denver and their third-ranked defense. You have to play in the moment of that game and realize the strength of this team was the offense, not the defense. And truth be told, if it wasn't for Trindon Holiday, they wouldn't even be in this spot in the first place. Baltimore should have been winning that game outright prior to that point if it wasn't for the 14 points they were handed from those kickoff returns. So it just makes no sense to me whatsoever how you go out there and have a quarterback of this ilk, but yet you don't use him when you have a chance to secure this football game. You look at around in the NFL who the best coaches are, and you better believe that someone like Bill Belichick in that spot with Brady is throwing 100 out of 100 times. Even someone like Jim Harbaugh with the less proven quarterback like a Kaepernick or even a Smith, an aggressive mindset like that, he'd be throwing the ball. I bet you Harbaugh on the other side with Flacco, he'd be throwing the ball. You need to have an aggressive mindset to win in the NFL. None of this passive pussy shit, punt the football away and rely on our defense. No, you do what you need to do at the moment now. You live in the moment instead of giving teams second life, and that's exactly what they did. And then furthermore, they get the football back after, and they decide to take a knee. You have 2 timeouts, and you have one of the best quarterbacks of all time and a kicker that's made field goals of 60-plus yards in that stadium, and you're just conceding? What kind of pathetic joke is that? Once again, relying on the defense, because if you lost the coin toss in overtime, Baltimore gets the football first, and they could score a touchdown and win, and that wouldn't even give Manning a chance to respond. So essentially what you're saying is you have 3 opportunities to put the ball in Manning's hand to win this game, and you're not going to have that happen. You'd rather rely on the defense. Oh, is that just absolutely absurd? If you're going to subscribe to that theory, then what was the point on even bringing Manning in? You should have just had a Tebow running quarterback and spent all that money on more defensive help. It is just an absolute travesty the way Denver lost that football game, as they were 99% of an opportunity to win, as they were in game minus 5,000 with 1 minute remaining in that game when they had that ball. Oh, just it's doesn't make any sense whatsoever, and it's a complete blemish on Manning's record. He moves to 9-11 with his career playoff record. He's now lost 3 games in a row. He's had 8 one-and-dones, And when you talk about the greatest quarterbacks in the history of this game, sure, he'll be in the discussion, but he clearly cannot be considered that player because nobody that dominates a sport has that poor of a playoff record and has this many poor performances. And he was not sharp all game. There were a lot of bad throws he had, and the offense was not fully in sync throughout the game, and Baltimore played better from an offensive standpoint. Flacco was the better quarterback in this game. He was making the deep throws down the field, and tremendous amount of credit to this team. It would have been so easy to just bury this team after they had that touchdown going against them on the opening kickoff. Same thing in the second half. They just kept fighting and making plays. Big congratulations to Baltimore. I think they're going to give New England all they can handle the next week here in the AFC Championship game. We'll get to that in a couple of days. And then one last note here from this game, besides giving Baltimore a ton of credit. Peter Tebow, shut your mouth. You don't go on Twitter and start going crazy because Baltimore won, thinking that it had something to do with Peyton Manning being bad, and if your brother was there, things would have been different. I'm sick and tired of people comparing and saying, oh, well, Denver went as far last year with Tebow as they did with Manning. Whoever says that clearly doesn't understand football, and they're just an absolute moron, because at the end of the day here, they didn't go as far because of the fact that Denver had a 13-3 regular season record, not 8-8, and Denver had a bye, something Baltimore never had, and they actually had a chance to win their second round game and not get blown out 45-3 or whatever the score is against New England last year, and they had way more upside and potential to win their games than they did with Tebow. So shut your mouth and stop having so much angst towards Denver, as it's quite clear that Tebow is not capable of being a full-time starter in this league. You should be thankful that he's still collecting a paycheck and is even in this league and probably supporting your ass financially. Shut that mouth, Peter Tebow. We put that game behind and we move on to the second game on Saturday there, which was Green Bay at San Francisco. It started off with the pick six with Green Bay. Things were looking good. The defense was sharp. You thought maybe there were some butterflies with Kaepernick. He was going to make some of those bad decisions. How quickly things turned on the dime. Kaepernick was nothing short of phenomenal. This guy put on a track meet like I have never seen. This guy is an outstanding athlete. He's like a gazelle running the football. They couldn't take him down, and it was a really special performance. Crabtree, Gore running the football, and even though Rodgers had some success moving the ball downfield, he was under duress the entire game, had no time in the pocket there, and in the trenches, San Francisco just wore them out in the second half, and were the far superior team. I don't know what I was thinking betting on Green Bay. I'm an absolute moron. I deserve to have my ass handed to me, and I will not make that mistake again betting against this 49er team in a big spot. And also from the Green Bay perspective, a lot of coaching things I just do not understand for the life of me. We can start with the useless defensive coordinator, Dom Capers, who was working magic a couple years ago for that Green Bay defense when they went on to win the Super Bowl. I don't know what's happened the last 2 years. It seems like the game is passing him by. He's employing methods and strategies that worked 10, 15 years ago. He's in his senior citizen days. I think he's due for a pension plan and should be vacationing down in Maui or the Bahamas right now, because he has no idea how to contain these athletic quarterbacks running around. There was zero attention put on him during the practice this week. There were no adjustments made at the halftime whatsoever. And just like AP ran all over this defense a couple of weeks ago, the same issue was presented here for Green Bay, and they had no shot. Mike McCarthy, a lot of coaching decisions I don't understand. They love this Ross kid returning punts because he filled in for Randall Cobb. Well, you know what? You got Randall Cobb back. Put him back in there. And if you're that fond of this Ross kid, he makes a stupid fumble, which is really the turning point of this game, then why don't you stick with him? You go back to Cobb because all his confidence was lost. So either you have someone that you trust the whole way and you think he's better than Ross and you stick through him through the hard times like after the fumble, or you go back to Cobb right away. Terrible mistake, number one. Number two, when you're down by 2 touchdowns and your defense can't make a stop if your life depends on it, on 3rd and 10s when Kaepernick's just taking it himself, why on earth are you punting the ball on a 4th and 3 from the 47-yard line when you're down by 2 touchdowns for a net 20-yard play? I just don't understand that mindset. McCarthy at times has been way too passive with the offensive ability of Aaron Rodgers, and he probably gets away with a lot due to the fact that he won the Super Bowl 2 years ago, but other than that, he really has not done a good job coaching in the playoffs throughout his career with Green Bay. And, even in the drive they had there when it was 24-21 in the second half and they had a chance to take the lead and they settled for 3, it's 4th and 2. You have to have the mindset of going for a touchdown there and thinking you can get those 2 yards, because you give that football back to San Francisco and it's see you later. They are scoring left, right, and center. This team is an absolute beast right now. I did say at the beginning of the playoffs that I like San Francisco and Denver in the Super Bowl. I don't know why I decided to get off of San Francisco in this game, but you know what? I'm going back on them. I don't see how they lose to Atlanta. I think they're taking on the Super Bowl. They're just two beasts with Kaepernick. He's going to be an absolute stud in that Georgia Dome on a track meet type of environment for him. And that's a recap of that game. Green Bay has no chance of contending for a Super Bowl anytime soon unless they improve that defensive strategy and, better yet, get some more help on the offensive line, because Rodgers is running around with his head on a platter with his life about to end, moving forward here if they don't do something about that. And then we move on to Sunday morning. What a phenomenal game this Seattle-Atlanta was. Atlanta came out guns a-blazing, got off to that hot start. They had the 20-0 lead at the halftime. But everybody watching, and including myself, who had his biggest wager of the year on the Atlanta Falcons, money line, that is, correct, not the spread. I had a feeling it was going to come down to maybe a last-minute field goal, and Atlanta wins a lot of these close games at home by 2-3 points. I got in early at minus 130. I thought it was a solid play, and boy, am I happy that I did, because I'd be, wanting to shoot somebody if I had minus 2.5 and they didn't cover that game after the way it ended. But anyways, 20-0 early on. Seattle had so many chances in the first half. The score was extremely misleading, whether it was the 4th and 1, the 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 runs that were stuffed, and then mismanagement of the clock at the end of the half. Seattle left bare minimum 6 points on the table, if not 10 or 14, and that had the score looking a lot prettier for Atlanta than the way, things were actually going on the field. And from Atlanta's perspective, they had to know that they had to come and put the foot on the gas pedal still in the second half, because Seattle had shown a lot of moxie in coming back. They did that. They got the touchdown. Atlanta responded. You figure 27-7, that's just too big of a hill to overcome. No. Russell Wilson was absolutely phenomenal. This kid is just absolutely balling. I don't know how he doesn't win Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's done way more making plays in the clutch than RG3 and Luck had this year. And, you just got to tip your hat to him. I mean, the injuries that he had with his offensive players, I'm not convinced Lynch was healthy. He had a bit of a groin hamstring issue and missed some time in practice. Zach Miller had plantar fasciitis and was playing through it. This guy improvises. He doesn't turn the ball over. So much credit to him. And you knew when Atlanta didn't get that last first down to try to ice the game and it was 27-21, it was over with that Civ defense. It couldn't tackle anybody. And amazingly enough, Seattle got that touchdown there. And if I was Seattle, I would have tried to hold the ball and chew as much clock as possible, not even allow Atlanta to get the ball back. And if I was Atlanta, I would have possibly even started calling timeouts. They couldn't have called the timeouts. They played it right. I'm more criticizing Seattle with the way they handled it. And just overall, Pete Carroll, a lot of the strategy, I don't agree with him. The 3rd and 1 and the 4th and 1, I don't understand how on earth you hand the football off to this Michael Robinson on 4th and 1. It's the most predictable play in the world. Everybody knows it's happening. They all run up the gut to stuff him. You have Russell Wilson who can improvise. You run a bootleg for him. You run an option play for him. And better yet, if you run the football, you give it to Marshawn Lynch. Putrid play calling. Fullbacks are done in this league. This isn't Mike Allstott anymore. This isn't Lorenzo Neal. These fullbacks do not have what it takes to get the 1 yard like they used to 10, 15 years ago. You got to be more creative these days. And I've always said, why not have a play-action face? Nobody ever expects it. And if there's somebody wide open like a Miller for Seattle, it's almost a guaranteed touchdown, if not a huge gainer. So you really reap the benefits of it after. And nobody ever seems to call those ballsy ones unless you're like Belichick or Harbaugh, two of the better coaches in the league, because they seem to understand aggressive play calling. And then another issue here with Seattle is the putrid idea of icing the kicker. I've never understood this logic here. You think you're going to make a field goal kicker any more nervous by stopping them, especially when they call it right before and they get a free kick at it? You know what it reminds me of? I'm sure anybody that's played golf can relate to it. Have you ever gone up to your ball after missing the first putt and made it the second time and go, boy, it's so much easier. You got a bit of a feel for it. You saw the line. You saw how it broke a little bit. Well, it's the same thing with kickers and NBA free throw shooters as well. The percentages are way higher the second time you have an opportunity to do something that you've already done. So by icing the kicker, you're giving them a free warm-up. These coaches are fucking morons that ice the kicker thinking that it's going to work. I'd like to see someone pull up the stats and show me that it actually works. They try to get all crazy with the strategy of icing the kicker and this and that. It just doesn't work at all. Let the guys kick the game for the game winner and just let it be that. At the end of the game there, you got to give credit to both sides. Seattle, tremendous heart to come back in that football game. Atlanta, Oh, God, Tony Gonzalez, what a performance this guy had. Catching everything in sight, securing that football. And Matt Ryan, despite the fact that he had some interceptions, it wasn't his best game. He had balls with those big throws against a good Seattle defense. It was showing what they're capable of that second half to set up Matt Bryant, who you knew once he missed the first one, he was going to make the second one because he's a very, very solid kicker. And I'm very happy Atlanta won that football game because for all the angst and criticism they got, it's nice for them to get that one off their backs. I just don't think it's going to be enough against the 49ers next week because their offense, whatever Seattle did in that second half is going to be duplicated for 4 quarters next week. So that's that game there. I thought between that one and obviously Baltimore-Denver, by far the two most exciting. The Baltimore-Denver was maybe more exciting from the standpoint of the fact that you had it back and forth. No team ever led by more than a touchdown. This one had more of the theatrics of the big lead, the comeback, and the choking element of Atlanta and Seattle with the comeback. Now, when you look at this Houston-New England game, it was probably the least exciting of them all because New England just absolutely steamrolled them. Every single time it was 3rd and long, it didn't matter what the play calling was. Houston had no answer for them. And I'm not going to make excuses for them, but they were extremely depleted with their linebacking core and a couple of injuries in the secondary. If they were fully healthy like they were early in the year playing better, I think they would have given them a better match. I'm not saying they would have won that game, and especially because, Gronkowski went out for New England. He's a mismatch for any team defensively. If he was there, New England could have possibly even scored more points. Arian Foster's still a baller. Always got to give props to that guy. And one person that I'll rip a little bit here in this game is that mouthpiece, J.J. Watt. You know what? I respect the fact that this guy is good. But just calm down with this little Dikembe Mutombo wave. Your team's giving up 40 fucking points. You're getting gashed. And you have hit a guy for a loss of 1. And you're getting a Dikembe Mutombo finger out there. Go ahead and do that when you make a big stuff when the game's on the line. And then there's all these reports that he goes and spits on the logos before the game. What kind of hooligan is this? Have some respect for the other teams in this league. Have some respect for the logos of the other franchises who have pounded you by a collective 85 points New England has this year. Instead of being such a mouthpiece and doing all your dancing on the field. I'm a big fan of celebration, but I'm not a big fan of people mouthing off when they haven't done shit. And when you want to talk about that as well, I'll throw Mouthpiece Sherman into the mix for Seattle. This guy needs to shut his mouth, and I'm glad that, Samuel said give him a nice piece of humble pie, because that's what he needs after mouthing off everybody and having it stuck to him as his Seattle defense allowed Atlanta to go 70 yards and kick the game-winning field goal after his team had a huge comeback. So that's my thoughts on the division week of football. You guys know where to check us out. The link below, bethub.com. We're going to be around for a long time. You guys can get your wagers in whenever you want. Challenge your friends. Create your own lines. It's got a bit of a Facebook layout so you can trash talk. We know that it's the conference championships coming out. Everybody's got to have a bet on it. Even if you're the most casual bettors, I'll see you guys there with my picks in a few days.